in the Morning. I'm Hannah Rose now with my co-host, Kara Lindenberg.
You didn't make me say my own name. She always just stares at me.
I'm just like, you go.
You know how to say it. Or I'm DJ Sunshine with my co-host, DJ Gray City.
And you can text us, 971-220-5979. Shout out to someone this morning giving me the hot tip on wearing gloves while driving. So thank you.
Because
Appreciate
if you missed that, Hannah was saying that the biggest discovery or invention in the future is going to be heated steering wheels. And then we talked about all the ways. I said, well, you can just put a cover on your steering wheel that has pink fuzzies on it. And she said, no, heating steering wheels are the way to go. And you know what, Hannah? It's your future. You invent it how you want. That's what I say.
All right.
But until then, there's gloves.
And there's national news.
There's always national news.
I'm sure lots of people have been listening to the testimony going on his third day of congressional questions. Michael Cohen is said to be cooperative. This was according to the House Intelligence Committee Chair, Adam Schiff, who spoke to reporters about yesterday's closed-door meetings. Schiff said the meeting was, quote, very productive, and that Cohen would come back for follow-up on March 6th. During Wednesday's sensational televised testimony, Cohen said this about the president.
Trump is a man who ran for office to make his brand great, not to make our country great. He had no desire or intention to lead this nation, only to market himself and to build his wealth and power. Mr. Trump would often say, this campaign was going to be the greatest infomercial in political history.
Cohen spoke before 3 congressional panels this week. He was questioned about Russia's role in sabotaging the 2016 election and the role the Trump campaign may have played in said sabotage. About the closed-door session, Democratic Representative Jim Himes said Cohen was questioned on topics not yet known to the public. He said, quote, we covered a bunch of topics that didn't get covered yesterday, so I think today's hearing was complimentary and a lot more efficient because there weren't cameras in the room. Meanwhile, some Republicans have called on the Department of Justice to investigate Cohen for perjury. They said he lied during his recent testimony. Democrats are calling these accusations baseless.
There's so many things to say about this trial that I don't know where to start. I think the biggest thing that jumps out at me is that who do you trust in this? Because honestly, I mean, look, if you don't trust Trump, then you don't trust Cohen, right? And so then how do you trust anything he's saying? But then if you watch these Republican senators question Cohen, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Because they just like rail against, how are we supposed to trust you? You're a known liar. And oh my God, and they're, how could you speak badly about our president? I met our president once for 14 minutes and I know that he's the most trustworthy human being in the entire world. It's like watching, like this whole trial has been, it's just like the Republicans are just on the campaign trail. It's very interesting to watch. But they do bring up a good point, which is that Cohen is a liar. He's admitted to being a liar. And so now you have to ask yourself, so what is his motivation for telling the truth now? Because, you know, well, I don't think, I mean, the Republicans were, I don't know, berating him about, well, are you going to take a book deal? And this is all for your publicity and whatever. And I don't think that you would get, I mean, because he's going to go to jail for this, right?
Yeah, he's already going to prison.
Right. So he's not going to get up there and say all of this just for a book deal. Like, that's not worth it. What would be worth it is that he's maybe trying to save face. He's maybe trying to save his reputation.
Still trying to get some deals later.
I'm sure he's trying to get some deals. But so, you know, do you take a liar at face value? I say not unless you're a fool.
I mean, I think it's really important that he's up there testifying. Is it important for all of America to stop talking about everything else, to listen to this one white man that we know is a liar and,
good point.
You know, connected for this many days, who's already going to prison? I mean, it's interesting.
It's interesting.
I tuned in because I didn't want to miss out on what was going on, but I'm also just like, man, this is taking up a lot of our
absolutely.
Space.
And how many more important stories? I mean, how many things go under the radar because of these big sensational news stories?
Yeah,
it's a very good point.
Which also seems like it's not changing anybody's hearts and minds people who still love Trump are loving him. People who want him impeached are using this as an option. So
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why everyone's paying attention, right, is because everyone's waiting for the bombs that he's going to drop on
and
Trump.
He's not going to drop them. I mean, he's already
He has a
said
little
what
bit. He has a little bit. But again, it's like, first of all, well, here's how I feel about it. If you are not a Trump supporter and the whole time have been like, hello, he's a liar, hello, he's in this for himself, then nothing that Cohen is saying is revelatory. You know what I mean? You're just like, well, yes, of course. That's what we all suspected and knew because we have put our thinking caps on and used critical thinking to look at the situation. So nothing that Cohen is saying is really like that astounding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then if you are a Trump supporter, and then you're not going to believe anything Cohen says anyway.
Right.
So it's like, so it really
Even though
is
you
just...
would have you would have before when Trump said it was okay to trust him.
Oh,
now that Trump says
point.
that he's not.
Right.
He's not. So
fascinating. It's just right. So rather than like perhaps change your opinion on, the father figure, whatever, we can get into the psychology of that. You just believe whoever he tells you to believe. By the way, we got a text in that says, "What is Cohen's motivation? Daddy issues." We're not going to delve into that, but we will talk about that later off the air.
Well, what's happening in California?
This is a huge deal, actually.
Yeah.
So the California electric company PG&E says that it probably caused the state's deadliest wildfire. There was some speculation of this back when the fire actually happened, but I think the big issue here is that PG&E is actually admitting to it. So this past summer, the so-named Camp Fire killed at least 85 people and destroyed almost the entire town of Paradise, California. Now the state's largest electric utility says that their power lines likely caused the flaming devastation. Before the fire, PG&E filed for bankruptcy in January of last year, and they recently told shareholders that they expect to pay at least $10 billion in claims related to the Camp Fire.
Wow.
California's Attorney General said in December that the company could face criminal liability for their role in the fire. Charges may include failing to keep power lines clear of trees or vegetation and recklessly starting a forest fire and murder. So that's a big deal.
Wow.
This story goes so much. Just the fact that they may be responsible for the fire is its own story, and that's a really big deal. And I am very interested to see how this is going to play out and what kind of reparations they're going to have to pay, and what that means for the people who lost their homes, or pets or loved ones in the Camp Fire. But I also think that there's a big underlying story here, which is that California's utility companies, and particularly electric companies, have been in trouble for quite some time. There were all these rolling blackouts that happened a couple years ago, and the power companies have really admitted to the fact that they do not have the capability to provide electricity in the way that California needs, because it's a huge state with millions and millions of people. And there's been some talk of, they've started to, California has these grand ideas of starting to delve into renewable energy sources, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they can't supply energy for their customers. And I haven't figured it out yet, but I have a feeling that there are puzzle pieces that will fit this, PG&E filing for bankruptcy, not being able to provide the amount of energy needed, and things like not being able to properly do maintenance on their lines.
Yeah. When a company is having to pay out $10 billion, can they still exist? A $10 billion debt? I feel
like you're asking the wrong person, because economics.
You're the only one here.
There's a flaming cat on the wall. You can ask the flaming cat. It would probably know more than I would. Economics goes right over my head, but because you want to know why? Because it's made up. If you ask me science about things that are like tangible, sure. But economics is very confusing because we just make up our own rules. And so can a company exist when it's like in bankruptcy and has less than $0? Yes, but only because capitalism. I don't know.
I'll accept that answer.
Thank you. 200 points.
Yeah. A new report says pedestrian deaths are at their highest in decades. Strolling to a park, walking the dog, and just hanging on the sidewalk have all become a little more riskier in recent years. According to the Governor's Highway Safety Association, pedestrian deaths are at a 28-year high. 6,227 pedestrians were killed in America last year. That's 4% more than the year before, and the most killed since 1990. The report says the number of pedestrians killed by drivers increased 35% in the past 10 years alone. However, 5 states, Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas, accounted for more than half of the 6,000. The report points to several factors contributing to the rise. Those include sports utility vehicles, driver behavior, including the use of cell phones, speed, sleepiness, and alcohol are big factors, and finally, population growth and growth in the number of people walking also contributed. Most fatal pedestrian crashes happened after dark, and the fastest rate of growth was at nighttime. One of the report's authors said simply, crossing the street should not be a death sentence.
Agreed. Should we move on to international news?
Yes.
A pioneering HIV doctor who helped prevent thousands of new transmissions recently died at the age of 44. Dr. Mags Portman was a prize-winning HIV consultant in London. She was part of a British team that demonstrated the effectiveness of a simple medical treatment known as PrEP. The single pill taken once a day is incredibly effective at preventing HIV transmission. After the study was completed, but before British National Health made it widely available, Portman helped at-risk people access the life-saving meds. At the time, PrEP had already been available in the US for several years. After helping prove the drug was nearly 100% effective in preventing HIV transmission and that it was safe for the user, she went on to campaign to educate fellow medical professionals. Dr. Portman recently died of rare cancer and leaves behind a husband, 2 children, and for many, the legacy of a hero. One college described her like this, quote, "She was like a teenager, a ridiculous sense of humor. For a really well-respected consultant working very visibly in her field, she was like a kid, her humor and energy. But the ripples of what she did are far-reaching, and she is known around the globe."
It's a beautiful way to be remembered.
Yeah, I agree. For your legacy. And your laugh.
And your laugh. Tensions are rising as India and Pakistan exchange gunfire. Yesterday, the nations exchanged gunfire in a disputed area in Kashmir. There were no immediate reports of casualties. This happened one day after Pakistan said it shot down 2 Indian warplanes and captured a pilot. The political party of the Indian Prime Minister said that more military action was needed. But Pakistan's Prime Minister took to national TV saying that the 2 nuclear nations needed to talk. He said, quote, "Considering the nature of the weapons that both of us have, we can't afford any miscalculation." World nations have been calling on the pair to de-escalate since February 14th when a car bomb killed more than 40 Indian paramilitary members. India responded to that bombing by conducting an airstrike in Pakistan on Tuesday. This is the first such airstrike since the 2 nations were at war in 1971. Schools have been closed in affected areas, and parents are being warned to keep their children indoors. India goes to the polls in national elections in just a few weeks. Some analysts expect the tensions will help Prime Minister Modi and his right-wing part retain power and make additional gains.
Sweden has arrested a suspected Russian spy. Authorities say the unnamed individual started passing information to Russia in 2017. The Swedish Secret Service says that the individual has been working in the tech sector, quote, "on tasks known by our service to be the type of intelligence sought after by foreign powers." And the head of the Swedish counterintelligence, Daniel Stenling, said, quote, "This individual is suspected of having been recruited as an agent by a Russian intelligence officer who is working under diplomatic cover." He explained that technology has helped nation states spy in cyberspace. Stenling said, quote, "At the same time, the more traditional intelligence gathering approach using recruited agents to collect information is still being used. This combination enables state actors to broaden and deepen their collection of classified information." The Kremlin has not responded to the accusation. Scandinavian countries have recently encountered new tensions with Russia. After Russia annexed Crimea, Sweden reinstated a plan for military conscription. The annexation also prompted Sweden to think about joining NATO, a move that displeased Russia. Swedish diplomats have been seeking an explanation as to why Russian fighter jets recently flew dangerously close to a Swedish aircraft. is such a complicated story.
And one more for you.
Good.
We're just bringing these international stories to you, like
Coming at ya.
Boom,
Pow,
boom,
pow,
boom.
pow.
The possibility of no-deal Brexit has brought Britain to a practical pallet panic. Unless the United Kingdom and the European Union can strike a deal on Brexit, Britain will have a tough time exporting goods to the EU. That's because the European Union has a strict regulation on wood pallets that are used in the transport of trade goods. So non-EU... Sorry, I wasn't expecting that to be so literal.
Okay.
Well, about these pallets, they,
Well, non-EU states must heat treat or clean their shipping pallets in order to prevent contamination and pests. Those pallets must also be painted with special markings so that regulators can track their legal movements. Pallets? We are talking about wooden pallets? Like, really?
you got to think about all the details in Brexit, I guess.
Whoa.
EU member state face lighter pallet regulation for international trade, but if the UK leaves the European Union without a deal, their pallets will have to meet the stronger standard. Simply put, Britain doesn't have enough pallets for a no-deal Brexit.
No. That's it. We've reached a critical point. We don't have enough pallets for a no-deal Brexit.
Earlier this week, the government held urgent talks with commercial and industrial exporters. UK trade regulators have indicated a commitment to keeping the current standards for pallets imported from the EU. Regulators say they hope the EU will reciprocate even without an official Brexit deal. The managing director of a British pallet company said, quote, virtually none of the pallets used in the UK meet the EU standards for non-member states. Deal or no deal, the UK is scheduled to leave the European Union in just 1 month, March 29th.
Ooh, that's not even a month away. It's 28 days from now. It's March. and Britain's pallets are subpar. Aren't you glad you know that information?
Yeah, I'm still
The world is
processing.
so weird. It's so weird. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with Cascadia News. We got some good stories, so stick around. You're listening to X-Ray in the Morning. I'm Kira Lindenberg, a.k.a. DJ Sunshine.
Hannah Rose now. DJ Gray City.
That's right. You can text us if you have any comments, questions, concerns. You want to tell us what kind of gloves you wear when you drive your car with your unheated steering wheel at 971-220-5979. We'll be right back. This is X-Ray, where radio is
It's yours.